Your brain is addicted to something that barely existed for almost all of human history. Long before candy bars, chocolate, soft drinks, or even farming, sweetness was one of the rarest rewards on Earth. Imagine living in a world where you could spend weeks without tasting anything sweet. No sugar in your morning drink, no desserts after dinner, no stores filled with colorful snacks. For your ancient ancestors, sweetness wasn't a daily pleasure. It was a rare discovery, hidden deep inside forests, hanging from trees for only a few weeks each year, or protected by thousands of angry bees. Every sweet bite was a gift from nature, and sometimes earning that gift meant risking your life. But why? Why did humans become so obsessed with sweetness in the first place? To answer that question, we have to travel back millions of years to the African landscape where the story of sugar truly began. The world looked completely different. Vast grasslands stretched across the horizon while patches of forests offered shelter from the burning sun. Early human ancestors didn't know what they would eat tomorrow. There were no farms growing crops, no refrigerators storing food, and no markets waiting around the corner. Every sunrise began with the same challenge: find enough calories to survive another day. Some days they found roots buried beneath the soil. Other days they searched for nuts, insects, or hunted small animals. But there were also days when hunger followed them from morning until night. In a world where starvation was always nearby, every calorie mattered. Then, one afternoon, after hours of searching, someone spotted bright red fruit hanging from the branches of a tree. The group rushed toward it. The fruit was soft, juicy, and unbelievably sweet. The moment that sweet juice touched their tongue, something incredible happened inside their brain. They couldn't see it, but millions of neurons immediately began sending signals. Their brain rewarded them for finding one of nature's most valuable foods. That reward wasn't an accident. It was evolution at work. Sweetness almost always meant energy, and energy meant survival. The humans who loved sweet foods were more likely to eat enough calories, survive harsh seasons, and eventually raise children of their own. Over thousands of generations, natural selection quietly strengthened this preference until craving sweetness became part of being human. Even today, every time you enjoy something sweet, you're experiencing an instinct that began long before civilization ever existed. But fruit wasn't always available. Seasons changed, trees became empty, animals often reached the fruit before humans did. If your ancestors wanted more sweetness, they had to keep searching. And eventually, that search led them to something far more valuable than fruit. Something hidden inside trees, guarded by thousands of stinging insects, and packed with more natural sugar than almost anything else in the ancient world. They climbed slowly, careful not to make too much noise. Above them, hidden inside the trunk of an old tree, thousands of wild bees were protecting one of the richest sources of energy on Earth. There were no protective suits, no gloves, and no modern tools. A single mistake could bring a swarm of painful stings, yet ancient humans kept returning to these dangerous hives again and again. To us, it might seem unbelievable that anyone would risk so much for a little honey. But to someone living hundreds of thousands of years ago, honey wasn't just a sweet snack. It was survival packed into golden liquid. A handful of honey could provide more quick energy than hours of searching for roots or berries. The risk was high, but so was the reward. Archaeological discoveries suggest that humans have been collecting honey for thousands of years. One of the most famous pieces of evidence is an ancient rock painting in Spain, estimated to be around 8,000 years old. It shows a person climbing toward a beehive while bees swarm all around them. This isn't just a picture of someone gathering food. It's evidence that the search for sweetness has been part of the human story for an incredibly long time. Even today, some hunter-gatherer communities continue to collect wild honey using techniques passed down through generations. Watching them is like looking through a window into our own past. But honey wasn't only valuable because it tasted good. It contained something every ancient human desperately needed: fast energy. Unlike meat, which took time to hunt and digest, or roots that required digging, honey delivered calories almost immediately. During long journeys, difficult hunts, or seasons when food became scarce, that burst of energy could make a real difference. This helps explain why evolution rewarded sweetness so strongly. Every time an ancestor found ripe fruit or fresh honey, their brain stored the experience like a treasure map. Remember this place. Remember this season. Come back next year. Those who remembered survived more often than those who forgot. Over thousands of generations, this powerful learning system became deeply wired into the human brain. But something else was happening at the same time. Plants were evolving too. Fruit wasn't sweet to make humans happy. It was sweet because plants wanted animals to eat it. When animals carried seeds away from the parent tree, the plant gained a better chance of spreading to new places. In other words, humans and plants were shaping each other's evolution. Nature had created a partnership where both sides benefited. The plant spread its seeds, and humans received valuable calories. It was one of the most successful relationships in the natural world. Yet even with fruit and honey, sweetness remained incredibly rare. Weeks could pass without finding either one. No ancient human could have imagined a future where sweetness would be available every hour of every day. And that future was about to arrive, changing the relationship between humans and sugar forever. For millions of years, that system worked almost perfectly. Sweet foods were rare, seasonal, and difficult to obtain. A strong craving for sweetness helped humans survive because it encouraged them to eat as much as they could whenever the opportunity appeared. Then everything began to change. Around 12,000 years ago, humans slowly started abandoning the nomadic lifestyle that had defined them for countless generations. Instead of constantly moving in search of food, some groups began settling near rivers and fertile land. They learned to plant seeds, harvest crops, and store food for the future. This marked the beginning of agriculture, one of the greatest turning points in human history. Among the many plants people eventually cultivated was sugarcane, a tall grass naturally filled with sweet juice. Early farmers didn't refine it into white sugar. Instead, they cut the stalks and chewed them, enjoying the sweet liquid trapped inside. It was a completely different experience from climbing dangerous trees for honey or waiting for fruit to ripen. For the first time, humans could produce sweetness instead of simply searching for it. As centuries passed, knowledge spread from one civilization to another. Sugarcane cultivation expanded across South and Southeast Asia before reaching the Middle East through trade. Skilled workers discovered ways to boil the juice and produce crystals that were easier to transport and store. Sugar slowly transformed from a rare natural reward into a valuable trade commodity. For many people, it was more precious than everyday food. Wealthy families served it only on special occasions, and merchants carried it across long trade routes because it was worth so much. But even then, sugar remained a luxury that ordinary people rarely experienced. That changed dramatically during the colonial era. Vast sugarcane plantations spread across tropical regions, producing enormous amounts of sugar. This expansion came at a terrible human cost, relying heavily on enslaved labor, and historians continue to recognize it as one of the darkest chapters in the history of global trade. As production increased, prices fell. What had once been a rare luxury slowly became an everyday ingredient. Within just a few centuries, humans had completely transformed their relationship with sweetness. The ancient brain, which had evolved over millions of years expecting sugar to be rare, suddenly found itself living in a world where sweet food was available almost everywhere. Evolution had no time to prepare for such a dramatic change. Our biology remained almost the same while our environment changed faster than ever before. This is why many scientists describe modern sugar consumption as an evolutionary mismatch. The instincts that once protected our ancestors are now operating in a completely different world. Your brain still reacts to sweetness as if every sweet meal might be your last chance before another famine. But famines are no longer the biggest challenge for most people. Instead, unlimited access to sugar has become the new reality. Scientists now know that your brain hasn't changed very much since the Stone Age. Deep inside your skull are reward systems that evolved for a world of scarcity, not abundance. When you eat something sweet, special taste receptors on your tongue send signals to the brain. Within moments, reward pathways become active, releasing dopamine and other chemicals that encourage you to repeat the behavior. Dopamine isn't simply the pleasure chemical. Its real job is to teach your brain that something is important and worth remembering. Millions of years ago, that system helped humans stay alive. Today, the same system responds to candy, cakes, soft drinks, and processed foods with almost the same enthusiasm it once reserved for a handful of wild berries or a freshly opened honeycomb. That's why resisting sugar can feel surprisingly difficult. You're not fighting against a modern habit. You're competing with an instinct that has been refined by natural selection over countless generations. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer groups have noticed something fascinating. Communities such as the Hadza of Tanzania still value honey as one of their favorite foods. When honey is available, they often travel long distances and work together to collect it, showing that the ancient attraction to sweetness is still alive in lifestyles that resemble our distant past. Even our closest relatives, chimpanzees, search for honey and sweet fruits whenever they can, sometimes using simple tools to reach hidden nests. This suggests that the desire for sweetness may have roots that stretch back even before the appearance of modern humans. But unlike chimpanzees or ancient hunter-gatherers, we now live in an environment where sugar is available almost every hour of every day. Walk into any supermarket and you'll find hundreds of products containing added sugar, including foods that don't even taste particularly sweet. Breakfast cereals, sauces, flavored yogurt, energy drinks, and even bread can contain surprising amounts of sugar. To your ancient brain, such abundance would seem impossible. It evolved expecting sweetness to be one of nature's rarest rewards, yet today it's surrounded by it from morning until night. That mismatch explains why so many people experience powerful cravings even when they aren't truly hungry. The craving isn't proof that something is wrong with your brain. It's evidence that your brain is still running a survival program written millions of years ago in a world that no longer exists. Every time you reach for something sweet, you're experiencing one of the oldest survival instincts ever written into the human brain. It's easy to think that craving sugar is simply a modern habit, but the truth is far more fascinating. Long before cities, kingdoms, or written history, your ancestors survived because they were drawn toward foods that gave them energy quickly. Those who ignored sweetness often had fewer calories during difficult seasons, making survival much harder. Over thousands of generations, nature quietly favored the people who eagerly searched for sweet foods, remembered where they found them, and returned whenever they could. That instinct didn't disappear when civilization arrived. It traveled through every generation until it reached you. The remarkable part is that your brain still can't fully distinguish between the ancient world and the modern one. Deep inside, it reacts as though every piece of fruit, every spoonful of honey, or every sugary snack might be a rare opportunity that won't come again. But today's world is completely different from the one evolution prepared us for. Instead of walking miles through forests searching for a few ripe berries, we can buy an entire cart full of sweet foods within minutes. Instead of risking hundreds of bee stings for a single honeycomb, we simply twist the lid off a jar. The effort disappeared, but the craving remained exactly the same. That's why scientists often describe modern life as an evolutionary mismatch. Our environment transformed in only a few thousand years, but evolution usually needs hundreds of thousands or even millions of years to make major biological changes. Simply put, our world changed much faster than our brains could. This ancient survival system still influences countless decisions every day, often without us realizing it. It shapes what catches our attention in a grocery store, what we choose after dinner, and why desserts can seem so tempting even when we're already full. Understanding this history doesn't mean sugar is good or bad. It means recognizing that every craving has a story stretching back through millions of years of evolution. The next time you taste something sweet, remember that you're not just enjoying a flavor. You're experiencing an ancient connection to the lives of the people who came before you. Somewhere in prehistoric Africa, an exhausted human once reached out, picked a ripe piece of fruit from a tree, and discovered a burst of sweetness unlike anything they had ever known. Another climbed toward a wild beehive despite the danger because the reward was worth the risk. They could never have imagined supermarkets, chocolate bars, soft drinks, or desserts. Yet the instincts that helped them survive still live inside you today. Sugar didn't just change the foods humans ate. It helped shape our decisions, our memories, our behavior, and even the way our brains reward success. In many ways, every sweet craving you feel is an echo from the ancient world. A reminder that although human civilization has changed beyond recognition, a small part of your mind is still following the same survival instincts that carried our ancestors through one of the harshest chapters in human history.